As a matter of fact, I mean, we're talking about, trans youth, trans adults, the whole idea that somehow an entire community of people who want to be who they are once again being told that you cannot. And there's some laws that may be influencing this. Eli, can you talk a bit about that? What's happening?
So right now, about 23 states have passed laws against trans healthcare in some way or another. Several also are targeting trans sports too. This is just really playing the political football. They do not care about this topic whatsoever. Well, the politicians don't, but they know it'll rally their bases. And so they're using us as this wedge issue to really try to gain support from their voters based entirely on misinformation.
So what are some of the healthcare issues that are trying to be blocked now?
So the most common one is banning transition care for youth and sometimes also adults. They I mean, frankly, it's almost difficult to talk about just because of how absurd it is. They are banning basic medication that's been available for around 100 years now and calling it experimental. They are banning puberty blockers for trans youth, which have also been used for about 50 years. And they're claiming it's experimental treatment or dangerous in some way. And a few things I like to point out are that every major medical organization agrees that healthcare, including for trans youth, is medically necessary and improves our well-being. And also that none of this is new. Youth have been transitioning medically transitioning for about 100 years.
And I gotta point out, like, it's not you just go to the doctor and say, I'm trans, and then it's straight to bottom surgery. That's not what happens. Because when people say mutilation and sterilization, like when Elon's talking about sterilizing autistic kids, he's thinking that like 7-year-olds are going to get bottom surgery, which one is expensive, and two, no, they're not. They're the parents are letting their hair grow out and play with Barbies.
But is that one of the issues is the age at which a person identifies as one way or the other? I mean, is that part of what people are concerned about?
This is a big part of the misinformation that people are claiming 7-year-olds are getting surgeries, which is just completely absurd. There's sure occasionally, I mean, I was a minor when I had surgery. I was 17 though. Like we're not talking about children here. We're talking about young adults. And they are pushing this really ridiculous, unscientific narrative that is ultimately making it more difficult to get necessary medicine in our community.
And I mean, I'm curious from your own world. How old were you when you began to just realize that you weren't like sort of how would I even describe it that you were being asked to follow a certain path of gender and it just didn't make you feel right. I mean, what was the experience?
I mean, I think that's a really great question because personally, I don't really know how I knew. Something I like to point out is that I had zero outside influence, never saw a trans person before, didn't even know the word transgender. I was 8 years old, thought I was the only person in the world like this. And you hear that story quite a lot from people who transitioned before the 2010s or so. And I mean, being 8 years old, I had no idea that I actually had options and I could express myself. So I realized I wanted to medically transition a few years later when I learned that was possible. And eventually my parents came around when I was 13 after rejecting my identity for 5 years. Let me say it was very difficult to get them in that direction. Literally everyone in my life was against me, and I had to advocate for myself, as so many trans youth do today. And nobody should have to do that. You shouldn't have to be going through 3rd or 4th grade and having to like advocate for your gender identity to your peers or adults. That's just something that no child should have to do for themselves. They should have these support systems that are currently being dismantled.
Stretch the kindness, rush with madness, is it sadness or just a show that